Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones, Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we get to the heart of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
Welcome. I'm Pete Mummert.
Let her go, Molaram. I'm Jerry Porter.
And we are joined today by financial wizard Andre Julian. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it, especially since minute 104 is without a doubt my favorite minute.
Oh, my God.
Clearly.
Look at you.
Yeah.
Hey.
You showed up just in time.
Yeah, I'll explain why later, but it
All
is.
right.
You guys all find out.
For anyone who may not be familiar with minute 104, I'll tell you how it begins and ends. It begins with Indy running across the bridge, and it ends with Molaram laughing that if Indy drops the stones, they will be found, but he won't.
I like because this segues from a nice, like, kind of horn version of the Raiders March into Shorty's theme. But as Shorty and Willie get to the end of the bridge, I swear that's not Short Round. I think that's Felix Silla, his stunt double.
Oh,
because
really?
you see him kind of run, but then he quickly turns around so you can't see his face, and he stands there looking the other way, and it kind of looks like Felix.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe the bridge really was dangerous.
It probably was a little bit.
You know, Steven Spielberg was terrified of this bridge, and he refused to walk across it. So when they were filming, he needed to be on both sides of the river, it would take him like 3 hours to drive from one side to the other.
Oh,
and
my
so everyone else
gosh.
would just walk across it. But Steven Spielberg would have to take a car and like drive through the jungle, and he'd get over to the other side. And then
That's crazy.
But he lets Willie go. across. He lets Kate
yeah.
go. How does that work? It must have been before the proposal.
They weren't going steady yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of this bridge, is this bridge on Temple of Doom property? Because I ask because like even on this rickety, dilapidated bridge, someone took the time to adorn the tops of the bridge posts.
Yeah.
And it's not with skulls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a really nice design.
It is. It is. It's even kind of sort of, I don't know, like light and positive.
Yeah, it might just be like a local fixture that the temple just happens to be next to. Maybe.
Yeah.
It was very well constructed. There were multiple strands, multiple cords on the actual part that was holding up the bridge. You can see multiple cords, which probably took a lot of time to build.
Well, this was actually it was sort of fortuitous because when they were filming this movie, this was filmed kind of outside of Kandy. It was just kind of in the hill country of Sri Lanka. And while they were filming this, there was a team of British engineers who were building a dam not too far away up the gorge. And so the filming crew was able to hire some of the engineers to build this bridge for the filming. And so this was actually built by the dam engineers. And they did a spectacular job. This is I love these simple suspension bridges like this. And this is a beautiful one.
That is awesome.
And it everything from the artwork on the anchors to the beautiful lines of the bridge. It's really a nice bridge.
What's awesome is that this is 1984 and CGI was in its absolute infancy, but this still looks awesome. This computer generated bridge going across this massive chasm. It's so amazing that they were able to. I heard that it took 7 years to render, but still, it was worth it. It's incredible.
One thing I like though, this is the earliest recorded example of a simple suspension bridge like this. Dates back to the Han Dynasty of China, probably around the time of Christ.
Wow.
The Chinese sent out a diplomatic delegation out into the far western provinces, and some of them made it as far as the western Himalayas, which is today Pakistan, but in the 1930s was India, which is exactly where this movie is set. And they have records then of these bridges crossing rivers and stuff. So I think it's kind of a neat tie-in.
I thought you were gonna go somewhere else with that whole Han Dynasty thing. Just
Well, I got to say that's actually why it was my favorite scene. I wasn't kidding when I said 104. I think is the best minute because one, if you look at all the adventure movies, there's always a bridge, or there's or an alleyway, or a top of a building, or something where the hero is trapped and can't escape, and it's typically that's the beginning of the climax. That's the beginning of where we actually get to to everything that we need to see. For the rest of the movie. So it's, I thought, wow, this is great. This is actually the start. This is the start of the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's well.
And speaking of sort of typical and climax, at second 8 we get another fantastic Scooby-Doo moment with Daphne, Daphne screaming, and Dr. Ooga Booga is delivering that bass heavy. Pete, you go ahead. You do it.
Welcome.
I can't hear that without hearing like the dong of inserting the
game,
coin.
Yeah.
Dong.
Welcome.
Why does he say welcome? Is he just being ironic?
I have that exact question written down.
She's not welcome. Or I guess in his eyes, she is welcome because she's suddenly a hostage.
And I mean, he's on the far side of the bridge. It's not like he lives there. It's not like that's his territory to welcome her to.
Right.
It seems very weird.
Unless that's the joke. He's like, welcome. I own this land too.
Maybe it's all his territory.
Well, maybe it is.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, in his eyes, it all will be eventually. So maybe he's just saying, here's where my pool house is going to go, and over there is going to be my, golf course.
Or maybe he was stalling so they could switch the stunt double out.
Oh, yeah. Then they cut back to Shorty. Oh, no. It's Mull around.
Well, you know what I love about that is if you look at the long shot when Willie and Shorty are running across the bridge, right as they're about to cross the bridge, Mola Ram and these guards are not there. And then 2 seconds later, she stops and screams, and they're all standing there posing. And so what they would have had to have done is they had to run, like sprint into place, and then freeze in these great poses. Like it's like they choreographed this just to get her.
Well, you know what's interesting is, so we talked about if you have one Sankara stone, then you basically can rule over a village, and we said if you have two Sankara stones, you get like. I don't know, like a large city or maybe like a megalopolis type thing. And then I think you said we have 3 Sankara stones. You get like the San Joaquin Valley, right, in California. So you're like, but right now, Indy has the 3 Sankara stones. So is all this land and territory his?
Or should it all just start flowering?
Oh,
yeah. Should everything? Yeah.
Peace across the land.
Could he have laid claim to it right then and there?
Yeah. Like literally get off my lawn, Mola Ram.
Yeah. It's like a bearer bond. Whoever holds it owns it. So if he holds those 3 stones, that's
there
it.
you
He
go.
owns it. He owns the
There you
land.
go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's law. That's, you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, do we care that, do we want to sweat and worry and spend our time trying to figure out why Mola Ram got all the way over there so quickly?
We want to spend a little bit of time and 1 or 2 beads of sweat.
Okay.
And I think
grant you that.
think there's a trap door that leads to the other side of the gorge.
With like a slide that
He
goes
just
across.
cackled on his way down.
I don't know. I don't know how that works because you're like,
Yeah.
okay, so I mean the gorges, gorges are big. and
why
they
they call 'em
usually,
gorges.
they extend them, extend like usually for miles and in both directions. So I don't have a clue. Like, did the trap door go under the riverbed?
You figure if it took Steven Spielberg 3 hours to get to the other side, not taking the bridge, this guy's got something special here.
Maybe there's a twin.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
This
I
is
like
twin brother
Yeah.
Molar.
Yeah,
Ham.
it could be.
Yeah.
We don't know.
roll a mom.
Oh, I like this. I'd never thought about that, but I like this.
You always have to think about the twin.
Yeah. That's how they get you.
And that would be why he's saying welcome, because he's welcoming them to his, he in his brother's territory, and now they've come to his.
Yeah. It's like a Hatfield McCoy kind of thing.
Or maybe it's like a Minneapolis St. Paul thing, where it's like they're the twin kingdoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They share a high school, but they're different towns.
Well, Pete, you mentioned the music, and the music here as they start to, Andre, you said the climax begins. It's in 3/4 time. And so I was wondering, is that sort of like a little John Williams homage to the Three Sankara Stones?
Oh.
They're kind of the feature here, right? He like pulls them out, holds them out over the river, and the music is sort of like, he's like, I know. I mean, John Williams is brilliant. He's like, let me put something in a nice 3/4 time.
Well, wait, shouldn't it be in 3/5 time if there is such a thing?
Well, that's fine, Tommy. Sure.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That was a good answer.
Well, Jared, because you just complimented me, I got a question for you. This is right for you. It's more of a comment, but you'll get what I'm saying. Mola Ram is like, he's yelling. He's like, you are in a position unsuitable to give orders. You know, that thing. And Jerry, you're with me. That's right out of Star Trek 2 when Khan's like, you are in a position to demand nothing. Right, Jerry?
It is. No, it's exactly like that. What I like about it is that it kind of Mola Ram kind of pulls the carpet out from under Indy. It's the old switcherooski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, you are in a position to do nothing. Yeah. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's like it's the trap door all over again.
Maybe that's what it's called. I think in the English language, it's like a phrase trap door. Again, we see the knuckle knife Thuggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This time with a lackluster entrance. They didn't, work out a choreographed bridge routine.
Yeah. Well, they were chasing him around the corner from the last minute, right? So they're all winded and tuckered out. And like, we got you now, Indiana Jones.
And the first guy holds his dagger almost like a pencil, like he's about to write something.
That's good technique. Well, why do you think they sheath their swords in favor of the knuckle knife?
Well, I think it's like the same reason you don't shoot a gun on a plane. Because like if you start waving a sword around, you're on a simple suspension bridge. You could be in trouble quickly.
That's ridiculous, Pete. That would never happen.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, but Indy has a sword.
Just like a Thuggy to bring a knuckle knife to a sword fight. And I was joking about this long shot before the bridge, but it actually is pretty incredible. The we get that one. I tried to use that as the banner for our listeners' crusade.
Oh, the silhouette almost.
Exactly, yeah. But the only thing about it is that, and still, it struck me the very first time I saw it in 1984, and it still does now. It always strikes me as like, oh, that bridge isn't quite as high as I thought it was. It's like very, very high up. But from every other shot that leads up to this, I get the impression it's like, oh, it's infinitely far down.
Oh, yeah.
Like you'd be falling for minutes and minutes and minutes. But it's like, oh, you go, oh.
I think the problem is we're looking at the foreground stuff. And like when you look at those rocks in the foreground, you're like, oh, it's not very tall. But when you look at how tall the people are on the bridge and you count like how many people it would take to get to the bottom, it is actually pretty tall. Yeah.
Wait, Pete. I did that. I did exactly that. And I'm going to split the difference between you and Tommy here. Tommy, you're absolutely right. Every time you see this bridge or gorge or whatever, I think it's like 1,000 to 2,000 feet up.
Right.
And almost like, the original, cliff that they go over in the raft and then they wind up landing, in the Mayapur river system. It's that type of promontory or whatever. But then when and Pete, I sat there and I looked at it. It's actually second 38. If you go to second 38, again, judging from previous scenes, it seems a lot higher. But I counted using my pen on my computer screen to measure how many 6-foot Indy silhouettes it would take to reach the bottom. And it was about 22.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, which wound up, like I'm sort of guesstimating here, it was like maybe 132 feet up.
Okay.
That's not. That's That's a little disappointing, actually.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, yeah. You know what the thing is? I think this is the first time you see the bridge and the ground in the same shot.
Yeah, it might be the only time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're sort of left to your imagination, like, oh my God, it's an empty casa.
I don't know. Everything about this, it made me think it was thousands of feet.
The distance between the Thuggee and Indiana Jones, it continues to, it changes. They're close, they're far, they're close, they're far. I don't know if you noticed that. It just seems like there's a lot of perspective changes in this scene that weren't that consistent.
No, you're right. You're right. I think that still, though, it still looks like 1,000 feet down. I mean, if you look down, like, you know, when Shorty looks down when he falls through, that doesn't look like 130 feet, even though he might have little tooty toot feet. You know what I mean? Perspective. You know what I'm saying? It just, it still looks like thousands.
I mean, people would get killed if they fell. I'm not complaining.
Sure.
Maybe that's why Spielberg was so scared.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we shouldn't argue. We weren't there.
Yeah.
You had to look at that thing.
We do get, much like Willie, you know, the Daphne Willie scream, which is at this point iconic.
We need to compliment her on that. We talked at the beginning that she didn't know how to scream and she had to learn how to scream. She gets out some really good screams in this movie.
I love this scream.
The scream right here is a really good one. It's
a
it's
really
very
good one.
Daphne. It's very Scooby-Doo, like hands to the side of the head and everything. But, you know, the sound and the tone are really good.
Yeah.
We also get an iconic Indy, let her go, Mola Ram.
Well,
Yeah.
first he says let them go, and then he focuses that more to let her go. And I was curious about that.
Oh.
Like because he says let them go, and then Willie turns to Mola Ram and gives him that weird grin.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then he
like
says let her go.
That was great, by the way, that grin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It is.
And is that at that point is Indy willing to trade Shorty for Willie? Or, like, does he think Shorty's just able to fight his way free like he has in the past, or is he already sort of saying, "Well, I'm ditching this kid as soon as we get to Delhi anyway"?
No, I think you're right the first time that he just that he's like, oh, the only person I have to rescue here is Willie. Like, Shorty's probably going to set fire to everybody in a few seconds. Like, when he's ready, he's just catching his breath from going across the bridge, but he's going to kill everybody. He'll be fine. But I got to rescue Willie.
Well, what's interesting is that there's always a scene in these movies where, you know, Indy very specifically, you know, he chooses the lady. You know what I mean? He chooses the woman in the scene and over something else. And I'm thinking, you know, as we've talked about, you know, tail over grail, right? Isn't that right? Right? You know, booty over booty, pleasure over treasure. Pete, you'll like this one. Bridal before idol.
Oh.
Spark before arc. Come on. He does. There's always a scene where he's specifically like, you know, I'm going to blow up the arc, Renee.
Yeah.
All I want is the girl.
Girl.
But isn't that his built-in character flaw?
Was it a flaw or a feature?
It seems to vacillate. I mean, that's what's kind of interesting.
Well, it never works out for him when he tries to choose the girl first.
Yeah, it doesn't. And so, you know, that's it. That's his kryptonite, his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and in this case, he did bring the woman along with the adventure.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in this case, you're like, does it going to work? I mean, Marion was his new damn partner, and that was kind of a thing he agreed to. And besides, I mean, that's an old flame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I do though, that we get this moment where Indy takes the satchel and he holds it over the water. And I've got a question for Andre. And Andre, as somebody who works in finance and manages people's life savings, would you say that a threat like this would really raise somebody's stress level? Because he's basically threatening Mola Ram's entire life savings.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, I think it would. I mean, it depends again on Mola Ram's underlying character, and you know, he's pretty confident that he could easily go and find them again. But maybe that's his big bluff, you know, because if you notice, he still doesn't really do much at that exact moment. You know, those are the campy little things that come out in these movies. You know, I look back and maybe this is a segue and the longest answer in history to a question, but I originally got introduced to Indiana Jones through my grandfather, and he was just a huge matinee fan. And when he was growing up, he always talked about Johnny Weissmuller and Tarzan, and that was a real actor, and that was those were his movies, these adventure movies. And so going to Indiana Jones with him when I was a kid, and just to see how he interacted with the characters, it made me realize that they're definitely bringing in human elements that are deep seated, and that's why we resonate with a lot of the conflict, and that's why we resonate with a lot of the drama, because as silly as it is, deep seated, yes, that is really a big threat to him. And it's an exchange of power. Indiana has the power at the moment, and then Mulholland has to get it back somehow. And you watch that interplay, and then that's how we ultimately drive into the climax, where somebody has to make a decision as to who's bluffing and who really holds the power.
What's fascinating about that is both of them, both Indy and Mola Ram, do sort of retreat when each one of them shows the other his cards. They do show they show Indy kind of retreat back down the bridge when Mola Ram first says, "Oh, you're not in a position, to negotiate," basically. And Indy literally sort of recoils back. And then when they show Mola Ram's face here, when Indy says, if you want the stones, let him go. Mola Ram does freak out, as if, Andre, as you said, maybe as if he's holding like his Roth IRA over the bridge. and he's going to let it go. But what I was wondering is, how exactly is this negotiation supposed to work? Like, if Mola Ram lets Willie and Shorty go, then, like, does Indy mean let him go, like, get a head start and run away over the hilltop? And then they'll all wait on the bridge for, like, 15 minutes and kind of count, like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
With their eyes covered.
Right, with their eyes covered. And then Indy hands Mola Ram the stones?
Could be.
Like, he's like, if you want the stones, let him go.
Well, I think, it goes back to what you said when Indy changed his mind about saving them versus just saving her. And then it becomes this, the value that Indy is looking to save is Willie. And then obviously the value that Mola Ram wants to save are the stones. And so then they're in this negotiation, and, obviously it's an irrational negotiation, because where's it really going to go? They're on a bridge. There's really there's no end to the negotiation. It's not going to be negotiated, but still it's this irrational negotiation about value. And they're just, at that point, they're basically just trying to outbluff each other. And who knows if there isn't even an end. And then the end would come with obviously some kind of a inevitable altercation.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, didn't almost the exact same thing happen on Malta when he had the bazooka aimed at everybody and he's going to blow up the ark? And we had the same discussion. We're like, how exactly is this supposed to play out? Like, if he gets everything he wants, what's going to happen? I don't see how this is going to work.
He also has this, because I think, when you talk about, when you read articles with like crisis negotiators or hostage negotiators, it seems like one of the things they always talk about is calming down the situation. And Indy seems like he tries to maximize the stress level for everybody involved in every negotiation.
Yeah.
Because, he's threatening Mola Ram's entire, like, what he's worked for his entire life. But this kind of changed my view of Mola Ram, too. Because before I'd always kind of thought that Mola Ram enjoyed the hunt, and he enjoyed tracking down the Sankara stones maybe more than he enjoyed owning them. But now it's interesting, because it's like, now that he sees maybe they're slipping away, he starts grabbing tighter and tighter, and you see that his whole face changes.
Well, it's also, I had a similar note, but kind of, it's a little different. Like I was saying, you got to admire the fact that he's prepared to re-lose the stones. And like, oh, okay, if it takes me another 50 years to refine those stones and the other stones, like I'm in this for the long haul. This is my, like my end game. That it could be decades away, but I'm going to keep at it. Like I was like, oh, look at him. He's sticking to it. He's believing the dream. Look at him go.
What's interesting is he says, "Drop them, Dr. Jones. They will be found." And I'm thinking, look, Mola, you just lost all your labor. Like imagine they go into the river. There's crocodiles and alligators in the river, and it's like, how is he going to fish them out?
I was wondering that too. Like, just how hard will they be to? Although, I mean, if you look at the wide shot again, I never thought about this
just
before.
like a little stream that kind of trickles.
Yeah, you might get damp if you're wearing socks if you go to look for the rocks again.
Yeah,
but I think you're going to be okay.
I was wondering though, is he actually serious, or I think they're both bluffing.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it, Pete. They're both bluffing clearly, because it was a great bluff by Molarab at the very beginning, because you didn't expect that. You think, oh wow, that's normally there'd be panic, but there was none.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, Indy realizes, well, wait a minute, I've got nothing, and so neither of them really have anything. They're both holding a pair of twos.
Right.
That is a great line though, Jerry, when he says, "Drop them, Dr. Jones. They will be found. You won't." And then he just laughs and laughs and laughs.
Yeah, he goes into like a crazy posed laugh, like he goes into like another scene almost, like in that 1 second. He kind of poses for like his laugh stance. It's kind of awesome.
But one thing I sort of thought about with this minute with you, Andre, is and we just touched on this briefly offline, but I was thinking about, like, Indy has, it seems like, at least 3 choices here that what he could do with the stones, like assuming he's able to get them away. And I'm kind of curious if there are people that would choose all 3 of these options, or if he only really has one natural choice. And the 3 options I was thinking he has, that are going through his head, if he's able to get the stones away, is number 1, does he return the stones to the village? Which would have, like, I created this little index. If he returns the stones to the village, it would be an archaeological loss, but he would have like a high karmic gain, and he would get sort of a localized reward, prestige in the village, but he wouldn't have any monetary reward. And then his second option would be to put the stones in a museum, basically just to take them. And he'd get, some reward from an archaeological perspective. I don't know what the karmic value of that would be. Like, do you get some good karma from having the stones where lots of people can see them? There would be a high prestige reward, but probably a negligible monetary reward. And then the third option, which I think is what I would have assumed that Indy would choose, is to sell the stones in Marrakesh on the black market. And in that situation, I think there would be no the archaeological value would be unknown, because it's possible they could turn up in a collection somewhere. But I think we'd have negative karmic value, and he would have a massive monetary reward.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very well thought out. And when the more I started thinking about it, I mean, it's deep, and that's why, again, there's an underlying pivotal point in this movie that relates to the character and the definition of what the character values as important. And so like with me in my work, I'm always asking people about their intent and trying to figure out their values, because those are the 2 most important things, because it's not universal. I've worked with people that literally would give their last cent, everything they have, everything they've worked for, just to make sure that their kids have a bright future. And that's a certain value. And then I have other people that if they had a nickel left on their deathbed, they'd literally eat it, because their kids are getting nothing. Right? And so which one is right? Which one is right? I don't know which one is right. I have my opinion, but it's just an opinion. So it's figuring out somebody's intent behind what they want to accomplish. And I think that, again, that's why we have these little underlying character attacks during these movies and these stories. And you realize that, yes, for him, really, I think at that point, he's looking and surveying and saying, well, wait a minute, Molaram, to him, these stones are the most value to him. And yes, I could go sell them and they'd be valuable to me. And yes, I could get my riches and my glory. But all of a sudden, maybe Willie's the most important thing to me. And that goes back to his character flaw where he does that, where he thwarts some of his own decision making, because underlying this big adventurer and scientist is this, this romantic, this guy who truly is seeking that love and cares for another human being, even though it seems like often he pretends that he doesn't. And that's where I think a lot of times chaos and conflict, they reveal your character. And through this chaos and conflict on this bridge, his character is revealed. And so he makes the decision to say, these stones are more important to someone else, to that, to the village I'm trying to save. And maybe that's the decision he makes, because he realizes that there'll be other adventures. There'll be other stones.
Well, can you retire on karma? Like, I mean, can you retire on good karma? And I feel like, you rely on Medicaid and Metakarma. they're gonna help you out in your golden years. I don't know. I mean, Andre, according to you, some people feel that they can, right?
Well, yeah, to a point. And it's and that's where it comes down to is you take care of yourself, obviously. That's important, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody. But at that point, it's, what's extra? What are you going to do with the extra once your needs are taken care of? What are you going to do with the extra?
Sure.
And that's where a lot of, values come in with certain families. So I agree with you. You cannot retire on karma alone. But you can actually, you can decide you are the captain of your own ship. When it comes to, the decisions you make. And so I think, again, whether we're dealing with finances, relationships, whether we're talking about the best minute in this movie, minute 104, decisions are made, and they all go back to your true character. And sometimes it's irrational, and sometimes it's illogical.
Do you, Andre, do you feel that the fact that he chooses the woman over the archaeological finds, do you think that that's a character flaw?
I do, actually, only because it's defined. You have, what is it? There's really very few actual plots. 7 of them, I think, and every movie, every story is just a rehash of those same plots over and over, and every hero has an Achilles heel. And they're embedded into that character, and they keep on revealing themselves over and over. It's like Superman and Lois Lane. He keeps on making the decision to go save Lois Lane, even though it might be putting something else in jeopardy. And that's how the villains can get to him, because they know that. By definition, yes, I do think it's a character flaw, because it doesn't allow him to think rationally. Doesn't mean that it's bad, no.
Yeah. Although, how would this scene play out differently if Shorty and Willie were not there? Like, wouldn't it still be the same kind of desperate standoff?
Yeah, I don't know that it would, because he has all the power, and he's the one that he doesn't need to bargain anymore. So he, at that point, can do whatever he wants to do, really.
Right.
So it's the value of Willie being there, and forget Short Round. He's not relevant, clearly.
He's on his own.
But yeah, it's that value that makes the tension in that scene.
He is.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Do you think it will play out different?
Pete, I mean, you're the one who came up with the beautiful index.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
I kind of feel like it's still a Mexican standoff. It's still like, if he drops him, they'll just, rush him and kill him. And if he doesn't, they'll fight him and then kill him and then take the stones. Like, it's kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, the one thing I'm curious about, though, is Indy makes a show of saving Willie, but in the end, would his decision actually be different if he weren't saving Willie? Like, he's still holding on to the stones. He's just trying to go for kind of the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
I guess the result will be the same, but there'd be no banter.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's cut through the chit-chat.
Yeah.
He's trying to ensure their safety, whatever the hell that looks like. Like I said, they scramble over the hill and everybody counts to 100 Mississippi. I don't know what that means. I don't think he can really ensure their safety.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And ultimately, as we see it in the movie, I mean, spoilers, it's not really him who comes and, you know, secures everybody. Indiana Jones isn't the reason everybody is secure. Wait a minute, I'm getting something coming through the wire here.
Oh my gosh. Let me get my headphones on. Hang on.
Oh boy, I think you guys are gonna like this.
Oh.
This just in from Professor Christy Porter.
What? What was that?
I can't. It's a. That was it. Here it is. It's a puzzlement. Yeah. It's a puzzlement. I think Professor Christy Porter was thinking, you know, what else Mola Ram could have said instead of welcome. So she's it's kind of a Mad Lib fill in the blank.
Oh my God.
I think her point is, let's see, she's saying, yeah, Mola Ram's trying really hard here. And she's saying that when you're standing sort of in plein air, you know, you can't exactly welcome like that. Like, you know, does he mean welcome to his promontory or welcome to the bluff? Welcome to the other side of the river. And I think she was saying, if you're going to deliver a welcome like that, you need to shut the castle door behind you. You know?
Wait, are you interpreting all of that from whatever you just uttered that she wrote
impressive.
down? You guys are siblings. That's
she
incredible.
just said, no, that is what
Got
she,
like a
you know.
ukulele thing going on there.
Well,
How did she spell that?
I know what her hands mean.
I guess so.
It means fill in the blank. And do we have a better answer?
So that's how it is in your family.
And I'm going to plant my flag on the Team Andre side of the gorge here, and I'm going to say that is his twin also.
Oh, okay.
So I think the welcome makes perfect sense.
It makes
he's
perfect.
never met these people.
He's never met these people. Welcome to the other side of the gorge.
That's why when
that.
Indy says "Let her go," Bola Ram, he's like, "Oh, who's he talking to?"
Oh,
You're thinking of my brother.
You mean me, Mola Ram? That's right.
Well, and we already have a chatter lot.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is just maybe it's just like I said, the Twin Cities.
Maybe it was shot out of sequence, which it probably was. And since Spielberg was so afraid of that bridge, he thought, let's just get this scene out of the way first. We'll just film this as the first scene of the movie so we can be done with it. And so when he says welcome, well, it's obvious he's never even seen her before.
Yeah.
He didn't meet her in the
Made to take him aside.
in the scripting.
No, just act like you've seen her before.
I think he says welcome because Harrison Ford hurt his back.
That's probably it.
And so, yeah.
I think so.
Well, really quick before we finish, Andre, could you very quickly explain the ending of Trading Places to me?
I can actually if you want.
Okay, we'll say that for the Trading Places minute, but thank you.
Yeah, to make sure that I'm on the last minute.
Yes, absolutely. But until then, if people want to find you online or anything, where can they do that?
You could just Google my name, Andre Julian, AndreJulian, and you will find information about me.
That sounds so reasonable. That's how the internet works. That's awesome.
You gave a cool TEDx talk recently that I enjoyed a lot.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed doing it, but that's up there and some of the media that I've done. So that's why I tell people just Google my name and you'll find me.
Cutting straight to it. I like that.
Yeah.
And Pete, where can people find us and our things? We haven't done a TED Talk, but we've accomplished some things, haven't we?
Well,
about us?
they could actually Google Han Solo and Indiana Jones's name, and they will wind up right at our webpage, IndianaJonesMinute.com, where we make extensive use of Indiana Jones and Han Solo, and you can find our trading cards, you can find our Patreon where we talk about Jaws, or you can find all of our other episodes of the Indiana Jones Minute.
That sounds like a great idea. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done here. And everyone, you do the same thing. And please come back tomorrow for minute 105 of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. That sucked.
You won't!
Welcome. I can't do that. How do you guys do that?
Welcome.
Welcome.
Stop it.
Pizza's the best. That sounds exactly like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need that gong sound.